In this video, I wanted to go over a few ways to model using splines. Splines are, if you're coming from Adobe products, you can consider them to be like vectors. They're pretty similar. We're going to use these. These are some of the pre-existing forms that we're going to start with. These different shapes, and use certain tools here. The ones I'm going to focus on are extrude, sweep, loft, and lathe. These tools will let us kind of create some three-dimensional forms out of the splines. So let's get started with first the spline. So again, I said these items. Oh, sorry, those are primitives. These are 3D shapes. Splines are like just these flat lines. I'm going to use some of the presets from here. So maybe I'll just take like a cogwheel. I have my different views set up. And you can see this is what it looks like from the front. With any of these things, the presets, you have different options in here. In this case, you can go in here and change the number of teeth. You can change the root radius. So it gives you some flexibility to work within the pre-existing parameters. So maybe we'll find some sort of shape that we like. Okay, so we'll get started. One other useful keyboard shortcut to know is if you are, I just oriented this to the center of my screen. What you can do is center an item to a window. If you click on the item you want to center and then kind of move your mouse over the window you want to affect and hit the button O, and that will center in your screen. So if you ever get really lost and you can't find something, that's a quick way to get back into it. So as I said, we're going to use some of these tools. Now these are NURB tools, and that's some fancy terminology. I don't think it's really important to know what it stands for exactly. It's some sort of acronym, but again, we're kind of using splines or vectors or paths or something of that nature to work with. So I'm going to start with extruding. Extrude will let me kind of build dimensionality out of it. We're going to make the cogwheel or any spline that you have a child of the extrude object, and there you go. It took a little bit of time for some reason, but now you can see that that's pulled it out. If you go into your options here, you can see we can play with the offset. It auto picks a direction, but you could go in different axes. Now that's wrong, but if for some reason your geometry wasn't coming in right, you can manually reset it there. You can also set subdivisions. So if remember, if we go into look at the lines, we can set, right now there's only one subdivision in the depth, but we can go in and add more as we need them. So this again is important as we if we start to smooth things out or need more geometry to play with. Okay, so that is example number one. Let's move that over to the side. Let's go in and look at the next thing I think we'll look at is the sweep NURB. So a sweep NURB is going to need two splines, one that kind of like shows the path that it's on and one that defines sort of the thickness of it. Maybe I'll do a few examples. One, let's do a circle. So imagine this is the path that we want to sweep or make dimensional, and the geometry that we want to use, maybe it's a polygon. Now I want to make this really small because this is imagine this volume, or this spline is going to get kind of moved around here to create the volume. And now that I have these two splines, I'm going to use the sweep NURB object. Again, that's in here, sweep. And I'm going to drag these into underneath the sweep, make them children of that sweep. But the order in which these are layered is really important. The path that I want to follow, in this case, that larger circle, should be underneath or the lower item in the stack. So I want to first make this a child. That's this piece that gets swept around. Think of it that way, swept around the other path, and that this path goes here not, there you go. You can see what happens, not the other way around. If we do the other way around, you get something unexpected. So that's really important to look at and to be aware of. In the sweep NURBS, there's some nice things you can do as well. You could keyframe this on and off, or you could also use this to make a shape if you wanted like a certain kind of curve like this. That might be something you might use for modeling. If you go into the details, I'll just share this last bit. There are some graph editors that let you, if you can imagine, this is the start and end point. We can start thick and get skinny. We can also, you should be able to see rotation. Right now it's not rotated, but we could make it rotate, spin around. That might be clearer to see if you don't have that scaling as much. And these are handles that we can adjust, but I just wanted to show that scaling. We can even make the range bigger. So this is like a lot of rotations. I'm just going to do that because that's a little bit too much, but maybe it's something like negative 360 and positive 360. That could be, and you're seeing, so this will really affect it. So you could get some interesting forms and shapes doing this. Something to be aware of. Oh, it looks like I moved that over to the edge. That's why I was kind of doing this weird thing here. But again, these are nice things to know. So that's one example of a sweep NURB. I'm going to take these and just move these over, and then I want to do another example with a sweep, but I want to do it with a curve or a spline that I draw on myself. Okay, so in the previous example, we just used some preset splines that were already here. We were able to kind of edit them a little bit this way. But I wanted to actually draw my own spline, so maybe like a more organic looking line or just a flowy line. The way I'm going to do that, in previous versions, I think it used to be nested in here or located towards the top, but again, R25 really changed the layout. The tool I want to use is called a Spline pen, so you can find it off to the left-hand side. You may or may not need to switch tools here like this. Again, if you can't find it though, Shift C will pull up the search in Cinema 4D, and you can look up Spline pen, and you can get it that way. So let's grab the spline pen, and if we click and drag, we can actually kind of make these points, and with curves. So maybe we'll do that. I just want to show also, if I don't click and drag, if I just click, I can get these straight lines, which might be helpful. When I draw splines in 3D, it's really disorienting for me to like figure out if it's sitting flat or not. And you can actually see I drew it kind of in 3D space, and these things aren't totally lined up. If you do want it to be totally flat in one axis, then I recommend drawing in one of these top right, left, front, right, yeah, top, front, right views. That will keep it set in one dimension, or keep it within 2 dimensions. Sorry, but this way it may or may not like move into space. Okay, so again, let's do a sweep with that. I think I made an extra spline by accident. Again, if one thing that's nice is you can click on the splines, and these points are editable. So if we get in here, what we can do is, if we are on point mode, which I think is what happens when you start using the spline tool, you can go in here and use the move, rotate, or scale tools, or just you can move points around in space after the fact. So again, maybe it's helpful for me to turn around and also just look at it and see what kind of line I'm making. Okay, that's the main idea with that. If you have handles, you can adjust them. If you don't have handles, you can right click and you can add some interpolation on it. So hard would make it kind of like it is now with no handles, and soft would add those handles, and then you can go in there and adjust so as you need to. So let's do that thing where we'll take another spline, and maybe I'll hit O so I can center on that. This is going to be way too big. Let me scale that down. I want to sweep this along that path that I made. So we have my two paths. I'll do a sweep up here. Remember, the order matters. I'm going to select both. They're in the right order, so I'll just drag them in underneath, and you should see, whoops. There you go. Now you can see. Now you can see the shape that I made. Oops. So some of these shapes are a little bit messed up. You can change some of the ways that it's broken up by adjusting these options here. Or you can add in more segments as you need them. And again, if you wanted to change the scale, this here might look a little bit more natural to change the scale and rotate. You can do that as well. So I just kind of made almost like a weird shape, weird path. Okay, again, I'm going to drag those over and go to something else. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'll do a lathe NURB object. So this lathe, basically what a lathe does is it takes a spline and spins it around an axis, and I want to spin it around, let's say, the y-axis. So it will kind of create this, it's almost like a pottery wheel or something. It kind of spins around. So what I'll want to do is draw a spline. And in this one, I probably do want to keep it maybe one-dimensional or two-dimensional, meaning I don't want it to be moving back and forth in space or in all three dimensions. So let me get the spline pen and yeah, maybe we'll make kind of the shape of a vase. Something like that. We'll start with this, and if we need to adjust the points, we can adjust the points. Again, what we'll do is we'll drag the spline, make it a child of the lathe, and you can see it spun it around, and it kind of made, it made like this pottery almost. Now, remember where my lines ended? That's where this also ends. So if you wanted, like, for example, maybe I want the top to have an opening, but maybe the bottom doesn't have an opening. So in that case, you know, again, these splines are still editable. So I could go in and maybe I'll grab this and just move it and watch how it kind of closes at that point. So yeah, this is what a lathe tool does. I think that's helpful to see. Whoops, and I just grabbed one of the points by accident. You saw kind of what happened there. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and also here, it's really important that you're careful. As you start to switch between splines, your modes will change. So up at the top, you have points, line or edges, planes, and objects. And if you want to start moving whole objects, again, you got to make sure that your objects is checked. I think on the older versions, it's going to be on this side, but I was just trying to move everything, and I was stuck on that point mode. So that's a really important thing to call out. All right. So the next thing we'll do is do a LoftNURB. So a LoftNURB is going to build volume around sort of like a frame or a structure. Here's an example, or here's maybe a visual way to show what that looks like. I'm going to get maybe a series of of circles, I think we can do that. And I want them to be facing upward, so I can change the orientation. So I want it to go this way. Again, I'm looking at it from the front view, so I can kind of get a sense of it. I'm gonna use 2 circles and build a volume just to show you what I mean by a LoftNURB. So imagine these 2 splines being the frame around which we'll layer some, like a volume. It's almost like this is like an armature for a volume. Let's grab our LoftNURB and let's bring both of these down into it. And you can see that those 2 splines dictated the shape of this. As I edit one, you can hopefully see that it'll move around. And this LoftNURB can hold lots of different splines in here. So the order does matter. So I should make sure that I put it in the right place. I believe the right place is, well, let me make sure that I have it right. So this is top circle. Let's call this, or actually this is the bottom circle. And this is the way that it's being built, top circle. And I want to, as I maybe make more of these, I want to make sure that they're going in the right order. So if this is the bottom circle, it's closer. It's kind of going in reverse order, I guess. But I want to make sure these go in the right order. If I move them around, I'll get some different things going on with that. I mean, I could also maybe grab a end side, and maybe I will bring that in. Again, I want to make sure the placement of it is correct. So like if it's in between these 2, that seems like I can just drag it underneath that, and then you can see that spline's being used there. But if I put this somewhere else, it's gonna look a little bit weird. So the order here is important, but hopefully you can see that these splines are acting as kind of like an armature for this. And you could doesn't have to be totally symmetric. You could start to mess around with it, but you could see that this is another way to build volume. So these are all examples. As I move over, we have extrusion, sweeps on this side. We have lathe NURB and LoftNURB. Before I end the video, I want to show a few more things that might be helpful. The first thing I want to show is importing paths or splines from Illustrator, because I think that might be easier for some people who are coming from Adobe products. Here's an example of an Illustrator file I have. These circles, concentric circles, and let's say I want to extrude them or make them 3D. I've made another video about this, but just to show it right now, since it's kind of related, there's a tool called Vector Import that will allow us to do this. I mean, we can actually just bring the objects in this way, the files in. So I'll go to File, Merge Objects, and load that file. Here's the Illustrator file. I can use the standard settings. And you're going to see that this that file is now extruded out. And if I wanted it to just be flat like this would be fine. But let's say I wanted to use these splines to kind of make a stepped effect. Well, I'll need to access each of these individually. And the way that you can do that is by clicking on this object and hitting hierarchy. That will let me, this option is now enabled. That will let me kind of access each of these splines. These, if you look at the icon, it's an extrude function. So it looks like it's going from the center out, which is actually helpful because I think I want to, if I wanted to step these, maybe I could set that to 100. Looks like it's going in the other direction, but just to keep this quick, I will just, step these. Maybe this one's 80. So I'll just kind of do it in this direction so you can see 80, 60. I'm going to do 20 centimeters in between each one. 40. And I think this one we could just call, 20. So it should look fine from the other side. And here you can see the stepped quality. So if we wanted to do something like this, if we had, these are just circles, and I totally could have done this here. But imagine if you had an illustration or something that you wanted to make extrude this way. That's how you could do that. The other thing I want to show, I'll make a new file, is if you're going to be working in Cinema 4D and modeling, it's good to have reference either on another screen or another tab or something. You can actually keep your reference and use it to help model or draw with inside of one of your panels. What I'm going to do is there's a keyboard shortcut. It's Shift V. It's going to pull up the viewport configuration here. The other way, I mean, you could also, if I do Shift C, it's look up configure, and you can see that that's what we're going for. I believe the other way to get to it is in view and configure. And so you can pick which of these windows to work in, and I would choose one of the flat ones. So let's do the front. I've already, I'm already here. So there's different tabs here. Actually, what you want to do is go to the back. You're picking what's in the back of the window, and you can load an image in here. So I'm going to load an image of a bottle. Here's that image, and I'm going to use that to help me model something. So I'm going to back out. Let's see. You can play with the transparency if you don't want it to be fully visible. And this is not like in the file, but it's here to help me draw. So I wanted to do maybe two things with this: a lathe NURB, drawing the spline, and then also using LoftNURBS. All right, so let's draw the spline for this using a lathe NURB object. First, we're going to go to the spline tool, the spline pen. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And again, what's going to happen is this bottle, the spline is going to be revolved around an axis. In this case, we'll do the y-axis. So we're going to start with that. I'm not going to make it totally perfect. I really just wanted you to see, and I can press like 1 to move the screen down as I go. That I could, this is how I might incorporate reference into the process. And, it might not be, it might not be like curved like this because that's in perspective, but, this gives me something to think about. We'll go and get our lathe, bring this spline in, and there you go. That's like, an approximation of that bottle. So I'll call this lathe bottle. If you ever want to turn something off, so I'm going to do loft on it, but if you ever want to just turn something off, you can hit that X, and I'm going to hit that or turn those things off for now. The check mark means it's good to go, but I'm going to just turn them off so that I can show you how I might do this with LoftNURB. So this is a circular form again, so I think I can use a circle, but if you had like an angular square bottle, it would be different. So let's change the axis so it's going this way. And again, I probably want to do these in consecutive order. Like I don't want to be jumping around. So we'll go to the top, and I'm going to hit T and just scale it down as needed. So that's the edge. I'll hit Control and click and drag. That lets me make a copy. And so then I'll just kind of move down, to, I'm going to take some liberties with this and go maybe a little bit quicker. Control, click and drag. I want to make this a little bit smaller. So maybe here I'll get, and that's going to kind of curve over as we go. Let's grab another one. Maybe here it's starting to come out. And you may or may not need more of these as you go, depending on if the curve is what you want. You definitely want, when you hit the edges of something, like this is the widest point, I want to definitely have something there to register that. I believe from here it's pretty straightforward. I think it just goes down and it's, yep. So I don't need ones in the middle. Maybe I'll just do up until here, grab another one. Maybe we just scale it down a little bit. And maybe another one. So actually I can just do it on the screen. I don't need to go up into the objects, hit Control and click and drag. And maybe we'll just do that. Okay, so we have all the splines. Let's grab a loft NURB and then we can just drag all these in underneath. There we go. So this is me building the bottle. And you can see what that looks like. Oh, some things I noticed right away is look at the polygons. So I noticed that this was a little bit chunky, and what I could do to make it smoother is add some more subdivision on this side. And you can see that's getting smoother, or, this could be interesting too if you wanted it to look a little bit more rough. Okay, so those are, again, some new tools in your arsenal. Hopefully they'll help you get closer to what you want to create.